How's it going, everybody? If you have a question about politics, I am here to answer it. If you have any questions about politics, I am here to answer your questions about politics, everybody. If you got questions about politics, now is the time to ask it because I am answering your questions about politics today. That is what we are doing. So if you got any questions about politics, just hit me up in the chat and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating if you don't know anything about it. I know that the concern that you don't want to say something stupid is real, but you don't got to worry about that on this stream because I do not believe in making people feel bad or stupid for not knowing things. I don't like to roast people for not knowing things, so if you don't got to worry about being judged, you don't got to be worried about if I ask this question, he's gonna think I'm some sort of MAGA lunatic, or if I ask this question, he's gonna think I'm some sort of liberal cuck. You don't got to worry about any of that stuff. There's no judgments. There's no debating. There's no roasting. So, hey, what's up, Laura? Good to see you again. Yeah, it's the Rocketeer over on Twitch says, you're answering my questions about politics today? I sure am. It's the Rocketeer, so if you had any questions, let me know. There was a time when I didn't know anything about politics, and I was always really intimidated to ask questions about it, so I like to create this judgment-free zone where you can ask anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. Stephanie Edwards says, why do you think MAGA only listens to Trump? So I have a couple of theories about that. I mean, there's a whole slew of things that are true for Donald Trump that can be true for no other human being in politics. For example, he was famous for being extremely rich for a long time, even when it was discovered that he was in debt and filed Chapter 11 a whole bunch of times, et cetera, et cetera. He still had this idea in the culture of being a very successful businessman. Then he was a reality television star that was edited in a way to make it look like he was a brilliant, businessman. And also, and this is a bigger one, I think, is that the conservative voting base has been getting their brains slowly pickled by right wing media for a really long time. And a lot of the politicians on the Republican side have not been also getting their brains pickled. They have just been, opportunists and have recognized, they know that right wing media is lying and they're just in on it. Trump is different in the sense that he has also been getting his brain pickled by right-wing media for decades. And so I'm sure there's a part of him that recognizes that he's full of shit, but he also believes some of it. And the way that he talks to his audience is the language of somebody whose brain has been ruined by social media and by right-wing media for a very long time. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay. Yeeson call. Oh, that's not a. Michael Blood says, you believe the shit you say. I do believe the shit I say. Jeff Mayton says, hey, can I ask a question? You absolutely can. Viver0411 says, is this going on for 4 years? Do you think he will be stopped? That is an open question. I don't really do predictions. It just depends on how much political pressure we're able to put on our politicians, especially those on the right. Like if you live in a place where you are being represented by a Republican right now, the time to blow up the phones of your representatives was yesterday. It is time. It is time to start putting that political pressure on our representatives. But if you're just hoping that the Republican Party or that the extremely right-wing Supreme Court is going to do the right thing and stop Trump, then, I got some bad news for you. You will never lose money betting on the cynicism and, lack of courage on the Republican Party. You'll never lose money betting that they will do the wrong thing. Let's see here. Jesse says, march on all 50 capitals Tuesday the 5th to impeach Trump. Yeah, everybody do that. Everybody do that. Do the protest, everybody. That is the political pressure I was literally just talking about. Let's see here. Jeff Mayton, yes, sir. Why do most people don't know who can... Oh, sorry, having a little connection issues here. Having little connections issues here. Okay. Yes, C. Collins says all those MAGA supporters are about 80% men, and the women you see is only to support father or husband. I'm sure there's some statistical data to, what do you call it? To prove that correct, but, I have not dug into the most recent numbers, so I can't speak on that. Alrighty. Carmine, appreciate the elevated thoughts. I do what I can. Savannah Wood, do you think that we will have martial law? I don't know if we're going to, but I do know that that's what Trump and Republicans want. They want to have unchecked power. It is the reason why they're firing so many people in the government right now. It's not for cutting costs. It's for getting rid of anybody who will stand in their way. The Elon Musk and a bunch of his fucking 24-year-old coders just took over the Treasury Department. And, if you're not worried about that, guys, I don't know what will worry you, because they have been plugging hard drives into the computers that we use to regulate payments, like trillions of dollars a year payments out to American citizens and various agencies and organizations. A lot of sensitive information is on there, like people's social security numbers and stuff like that. And so, Musk and his goons are now plugged in to the American government's most sensitive computer systems. And that should be a concern to everybody. Let's see here. Bring on the Liberal Manta says, thank you, President Trump team, for cleaning up. That's not a question. Let's see here. Okay. Holy fuck says he is president because we wanted him to be president. We are the majority. You're not the majority. Only 23% of Americans voted for Donald Trump. It was an extremely slim majority that won. So that's inaccurate. Kelly Lynn says, I agree with you. Can't Congress or anybody stop this since it's dangerous? Yeah, but the problem is that Republicans are in charge of Congress. And Republicans won't do this unless we, the people, put political pressure on them, because they don't give a shit. They honestly don't care. If it's up to them, they would be like, yeah, fucking tear the whole thing down. They don't care about saving the government. They don't care about protecting people. They don't care about the fact that these government organizations, are the reason why we can have things like clean drinking water and safe flights places. It is no coincidence that Trump gutted the FAA and then we had the first mid-air collision in 16 years in this country. All right, scrolling down to the bottom, Jesse S. says, why didn't Kamala win the popular vote? There are a couple of reasons that people ascribe to that. There's an incumbency bias that was felt in 2024, meaning that everybody who was in power in 2024, whatever party, whatever country, regardless of how left, right, or center, they all suffered election consequences this year because people were just mad at whoever was in charge. That's number one. But I also think that a bigger part of it is the media environment and the fact that if people read the news, they voted for Democrats by a factor of 80 to 20. But the rest of Americans got their news off of social media, and social media is in the bag for the Republican Party and for the billionaire class and the CEO class. It is extremely easy to manipulate social media if you have a lot of money and influence, and the Republican Party and the billionaire class do. So they did. Nick says, I'm sure like the fact she was put into power in a political coup and there was no vote. Nick, I don't know if you are purposefully spreading misinformation on my live stream or if you're just one of the people that got duped, that got tricked. But it was not a coup that made her the nominee. There are a million reasons why she was the nominee that have nothing to do with the Democrats' coup. There was no Democratic coup. The Democratic organization is a private organization. They can do whatever the fuck they want. There is no legal obligation for them to give us a primary. They do because they are a democratic organization. But the fact of the matter is, Biden dropped out of the race with 107 days to go. There were Republican-led states that were saying that if you do not give us the name of your nominee before the DNC, then we're going to print ballots without the name of your nominee on them, which would have hurt whoever the nominee was going to be. And the fact that there are all these right-wing people on the internet who are saying that it was a coup that installed Kamala as the primary candidate when it was the Republican Party that was forcing Democrats to come up with a nominee before the convention. It's just more examples of the to hurt the Democratic Party. All of this bullshit is out there to hurt the Democratic Party. Scuba Steve, arguing with a Democrat is like arguing with a toddler. What a nice thing to say, Scuba Steve. Guess what? You're out of here. Let's see here. Alana says they'll call that a coup, but won't even call an actual coup a coup. Yeah, do you have a problem with the DNC putting their weight behind Kamala Harris as the primary candidates? Because if you have a problem with that, then oh boy, if you're going to be real upset when you look at what the current government is doing. Abby said, would Bernie Sanders be a better president? 100% without question. Bobby says, I miss Steve. You talk about Scuba Steve? Well, you can get out of here too. Kaylee, when will we feel the hit of these tariffs? There are some reports that say that we are already feeling the effects of the tariffs, but we'll just have to go. We'll have to wait and see how the market handles things. We'll just have to wait and see how these giant monopolies handle things. It's an open question. Mike Chilcote says, you think if like Sydney Sweeney ran, she'd win? Probably not. She's very attractive, but she doesn't have a lot of bona fides in politics. Kaylee Lynn says, we're feeling it in the stock market. I mean, before the markets opened, I saw that futures had crashed, but I don't know how the market has reacted so far. So I gotta, I don't have one of those trader decks where I see like up to the minute, data on that. Chadsito the Foo says, do you believe free healthcare is a human right? Yes, I do. Olive Fully says, thoughts on the LA protests? They were great. I just wish they had been bigger. Dave Odd, I was at Target yesterday and things were already ringing up higher than they were labeled on the shelf. That's interesting. I'm not really sure if that's legal, but I think that you can be like, hey, this is not the price that was on the thing over there. Let's see here. Wall2 says, sorry if you answered already, but I have a bad connection. Thoughts on Kyle Kulinski? I don't know who Kyle Kulinski is. Garrett said, may God's love fill your heart with peace and joy. You are deeply loved and wonderfully made. Thank you, Garrett. I really appreciate you saying that. Quentin, do you think left and right voters have more in common with each other than the upper class? Absolutely. It is a trick of the ruling class that has convinced Democratic voters that their enemy is Republican voters and not the billionaire class in the Republican Party that is in league with them. And it is a trick of the billionaire class that they have convinced Republican voters that their enemy is immigrants and people of color and the poor, anybody who doesn't speak English as a first language, and Democratic voters, trans people, will Trump be impeached? Not unless we vote for politicians who will impeach him, or we put pressure on the Republicans who are currently in charge to impeach him. That is the long and short of it. The work is now in our hands as the citizens. The Democratic Party cannot save us. The judicial system is not going to save us, and Republican politicians are not going to save us. We have to be the ones to do the work. And the work is putting pressure on politicians to do something about it, especially if they're Republicans, because again, Republicans are the ones who have all the power in government right now, or getting out the vote for the midterms and making sure that Democrats win in such overwhelming majorities that people recognize that this kind of politics is toxic and not what people want. So yeah, I hope that everybody who's watching, the 300 plus people that we got watching on TikTok and however many people are watching over on Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, I hope that you guys are hearing this because we have to do the work now. It is up to us. Cat C says, why would you want to impeach him? Because he's already broken the law like a bunch of times. Just in firing the attorney generals that he fired last week, in letting Elon Musk plug unsafe hard drives into government computers, that's against the law. Let's see here. Quentin, I've noticed Trump has been testing the loyalty of his constituents by making these insane decisions. Yeah, he does these loyalty tests. That is part of it. It's the Rocketeer says, I'm the only one here, and I'm hearing it. Thank you, It's the Rocketeer. I appreciate you being here. Let's see here. Over on Instagram, we've got Diane Garrett says, why is Congress not working on the OPM and Treasury breach by month? Because they're Republicans. Because Congress is run by Republicans, and so they don't care. They don't care that people are going to get hurt. They only care about winning elections and protecting the billionaire class that funds their campaigns. That is all that they care about. So they're not going to do anything about it unless we put political pressure on them or we vote them out of office. Those are the only two things that are going to help us right now. Alrighty. Mark Luke says, this guy won't read everything on the screen because he doesn't know how to get around a bad comment. No, it's because I have 300 people watching just on TikTok and the comments come in fast and furious. Mitchell Bastian says, who's America's greatest ally? It is anybody's guess now. Cat C says, you don't care about the turmoil that occurred with Biden. Cat C, I don't know if you are here to push a narrative or if you're here asking good faith questions, but here's the thing. The turmoil of the Biden administration was just putting out all the fires that were started during the Trump administration. And the fact of the matter is he did a lot of great for this country and he put out a lot of those fires. But because of the media narratives that are designed to hurt Democrats and help Republicans, and because of all the fires that were started during the Trump administration, this information didn't get out to the general public. They were seeing the high prices, and it wasn't registering to them that that was the fault of Donald Trump and the billionaire class. They were seeing high gas prices, and they were not aware that that was caused by a deal that Trump made with oil-producing countries in his last couple of months in office. And so, if you're here to get into it, I'll get into it with you. But if you're just pushing out narratives. Oh, Cat C, put out the fires. Okay, yeah. Trade routes got completely fucked because Trump fucked up the COVID situation so thoroughly. Tariffs that were started during the Trump administration meant that we were suddenly in trade wars with countries that we were not in trade wars before. And so we had to suddenly start operating under the auspice that we have to renegotiate certain trade agreements with other countries. There was also I already mentioned the deal that Trump made with the gas-producing countries with OPEC to lower production, which increased costs when Biden took office. There was the instability that he caused by assassinating an Iranian general named Qasem Soleimani and kicking sand into the face of the Palestinians by, not letting them into the Abraham Accords and moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. Let's see here. What else did he do? Other fires to put out. He didn't staff our embassies around the globe, and so we had to rebuild the State Department. And the good that Biden did, he passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which brought inflation, the Trump inflation, by the way, back from 9% down to 2.4%. Additionally, the Inflation Reduction Act was the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history, which was revitalizing small towns with green, safe, clean energy jobs. He stood with the unions more than any president since FDR. He lowered prescription drug costs, and he lowered, health insurance premiums for seniors and for everybody, but mostly for seniors. I don't know. Do you need more, Cat C? Because there's a little bit. All right, it's the Rocketeer over on Twitch. Thoughts on the hypocrisy of Elon plugging in private servers into OPM's database a mere 10 years after Republicans crying about Hillary's private email servers? What I've discovered is that the American public doesn't really give a shit about political hypocrisy, because it is what the Republican base is built on, saying one thing and doing something else, and then watching liberals scream their heads about it and be like, oh my God, the hypocrisy. And then the Republicans being like, tee-hee, we actually don't give a shit. It's the same way that we were all telling everybody, like, Project 2025 is what's going to happen when Trump gets elected. And all the Republicans were like, no, it's not. And then he got elected and they were like, tee-hee-hee, it really was. These are the con artists, everybody. And I don't understand why. How many more lies do you need to catch them in before you realize that they're completely full of shit, everybody? So I think that, Democrats calling out Republican hypocrisy, it's a losing battle. It's a fool's errand, It's dumb. You just got to talk about how these things are hurting people, and you got to talk about the unprecedented illegality of it, and hopefully people will start to register how dangerous it is and will start actually voting in a way that mirrors their best interest. Girl Friday says, what do you think about the rabid anti-Semitism on the left? There is no rabid anti-Semitism on the left. There is rabid anti-Semitism on the right in this country. But if you're talking about people that are protesting for the people in Palestine to be treated fairly and, justly, I don't view that as anti-Semitism. I believe that you can criticize the extremely right-wing Netanyahu Israeli government without, being anti-Semitic. I think that it's perfectly valid to criticize the Netanyahu government the same way that I think it's perfectly valid to criticize Hamas, because, both Hamas and Netanyahu are guilty of war crimes. Let's see here. All right. Christina, my friend's MAGA husband posted, if tariffs don't work, why are they retaliated with tariffs? Because it's the same way as like saying that violence doesn't work, but if you punch me in the face, I'm going to punch you in the face, Trump is trying to exert pressure over these other countries, and these countries are standing up to him. That's all that there is. It's a quid pro quo, man. Damn, Jason, who actually benefits from Trump being president? The rich and racists and authoritarian governments like Putin and Kim Jong-un. Matt Friend says, are you referring to Joe Biden's big lie about October 7th? What was Joe Biden's big lie about October 7th? I have no idea what you're talking about. Dawson Peterson, I know that the Mexico one already has been put on pause. I haven't seen that in the news, so I can't speak on that. K Chaos says, I'm going to tell your mom if you tell my mom, schoolyard behavior in the terraforms. Yeah, exactly. Jacob, what are your thoughts on general strike? I'm for it. Strikes, any kind of political pressure that we can mount by organizing, that is what we need to do. That is what we need to be doing right now. And so strike, protest, boycott, call your representatives, Indivisible, guys, the Indivisible playbook, use it, read it, learn it, love it. Organize with people, like-minded people, call your representatives, and make sure that everybody that you know is going to be voting in the midterms, because getting back some political power from the Republicans and from Trump is tantamount. You know, and people make this thing, they make a stink about this all the time. It's like, oh, every election is the most important election of my lifetime. It's like, well, yeah, because Trump came onto the scene and has started threatening to destroy everything that we hold dear and hurt a lot of people in the process. So yeah, every election is the most important election in our lifetime. Mark Lukes says, Democrats are all done. That is an example of a comment that has exactly zero substance. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Mindspin says, if you don't see the anti-Semitism on the left, you're not paying attention, and I'm on the left. Palestine was a red herring that lost Democrats the election. That is one of the most wrong comments I think I've ever seen in my life, Mindspin. Yeah, there's anti-Semitism on the left, but it's mostly on the right. It's legislated on the right, whereas there are just people on the left who are anti-Semitic. The Democratic Party is not anti-Semitic. The left-wing ideology is not anti-Semitic. This is another thing that I see, an unfair bias against the left wing in this country, where the worst person is in charge of the Republican Party right now, and we are judging the Republican Party based on the best of them. Whereas the Democratic Party is only judged based on the most fringe left-wing lunatic who doesn't even have a fucking profile picture, and his username is user and a whole bunch of fucking numbers. So yeah, you want to say that there's anti-Semitism on the left? Sure. By, like Butthole Chugger 89 on, Tumblr or whatever. As far as like institutional anti-Semitism, it doesn't exist on the left the way that it does on the right. The way that the president of the United States, who is Republican, has said, has perpetuated anti-Semitic stereotypes about Jews loving money and shit like that. Palestine was a red herring. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Palestine, there's a real war happening. Real people are dying. And real war crimes are being committed, both by Hamas and by the Netanyahu government. So, like, literally, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Brave Squirrel, if there's no consequence for all Trump's crimes, then why waste the energy? Because if we give up, then they get to do even more bad things, If somebody stabs you and then they walk free because of a technicality, are you going to stop them from continuing to stab you in the future just because, what's the point, It can get worse. I feel like people don't understand that, This was an argument that I had with people who were saying, like, well, I'm not going to vote for Democrats because of their continued support of the Netanyahu Israeli government. And I'm like, but it can get worse. And they're like, oh, it can get worse? It can get worse? And I'm like, it has literally already gotten worse. Because the Trump administration has canceled sanctions that we had put on illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank and has resumed sending 2,000-pound bombs to the Israeli government. The Biden administration wasn't putting a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, but they were putting some, and now all that is gone. Climate change, people are like, well, we're already so fucked because of climate change. Why? Because it can get worse. Because it can get worse. It can always get worse, guys. And we need to do the work to keep it from getting worse. Alrighty, let's see here. Getting back into these TikTok comments. K Chaos, if they con you once, they will con you again. Yeah, no arguments here. C Curio 7, because Americans have been stabbed too many times and nothing happens. Nothing happens is not a productive narrative, and it's also bullshit, whoever it was that just commented that. because lots of things happen, lots of things change in this country. When people vote for good politicians, good things happen. When people vote for bad politicians, bad things happen. I can give you a million examples. Christina, do you see America going to total shit and dictatorship on Donald Trump? I do, if people don't do the work. If people don't do the work of putting political pressure on their representatives and also convincing people to vote for Democrats and vote Republicans out of office, then 100% I see America going to total shit and dictatorship under Donald Trump. Hakeem Hussein Rahim Abdul says, are you pro-Palestine? I am pro the citizens of Palestine, and I am anti-Hamas. I am pro the citizens of Israel, and I'm anti the right-wing Israeli government. Ken Ponder, do you think Congress will impeach if it gets worse? No. No, Congress is run by Republicans, and again, Republicans never do the right thing unless they are forced to do the right thing. So if we do not call our representatives and put pressure on them to stand up to the Trump administration, they are not going to. And if we don't vote in Democrats instead of Republicans, Democrats have a little bit of autopilot, like you can kind of trust them to do the good thing without putting tons of political pressure on them and fucking protesting outside their office 24/7. You know, they do need a little guiding hand on occasion. It is true. But Republicans will always do the wrong thing unless you literally just like hammer it into them. If you've ever talked to like an elementary school teacher, they tell you that the boys with J names are always the problem. I think it's pretty funny as a boy with a J name who was nothing but an angel in school, I'll have you know. But that's what it's like. Is Republicans are the boys with J names. So you got to watch them constantly. You got to constantly be telling them, no, don't do that. Do the right thing instead of the bad thing. Let's see here. RK says, use 5Calls app or go to 5calls.org to contact with your representative. That is an excellent suggestion, especially if you live in a red district or state. Mary Angela, what about Elon's access to treasury accounts? It's a fucking nightmare, Mary. Like, I don't know. I have no good spin on this. It is illegal. It is unsafe. He has just put all of our most valuable data at risk. You know, there's a scheme that was talked about in the movie Office Space and was an actual thing where somebody hacked into banks and just redirected the statistically insignificant round up pennies, like fractions of a penny, into their account and made millions of dollars that way. Before they were caught and arrested. It's the exact same thing that was in the movie Office Space. There is nothing, we could potentially be looking at that happening right now. That every transaction that happens through the Treasury Department of America, a 0.001% of a penny is going directly into Elon Musk's bank account. That could literally be happening right now, and we would have no way of stopping it or knowing about it. Because again, you shouldn't just let 9 24-year-old coders who were not elected just run ramshod over our most sensitive technological data. It's a fucking nightmare, and we should all be fucking calling our representatives and yelling and screaming about this. Alrighty. Jomar Supreme says, you think these tariffs are going to work out how Trump thinks it is against Canada and Mexico? No, it is definitely not going to work out how Trump thinks that is going to work out. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it is not going to be what Trump wants it to be. Or maybe it is what he wants it to be, but it's not what he's saying it's going to be. Wall2 says, you think Trump crashing the ECO could be good because then the U.S. would have less power? I don't, because chaos only helps right-wing governments. You know, there's this political ideology called accelerationism, where people on the left will vote for the worst politicians on the right because they want the government to collapse so that we can rebuild a socialist utopia from the ashes. The problem is that there is a less than 50% chance of that happening, because when chaos happens, people look to strongmen and authoritarians to save them. They're like, put those people in jail. I don't give a shit if it violates their civil rights. I just want to have clean, safe streets once again. There are very few historical analogies to governments collapsing and better, safer, more free governments emerging from the ashes. I'm not saying that there are zero examples. I'm just saying there's more examples of it becoming lawless, authoritarian, Wild West shit instead. Let's see here. Malord says, hi again. Love when you're on live. Will you be on tomorrow? I will be on tomorrow. I was impelled. I know my usual schedule is Tuesday through Friday, but I was compelled to to do another one today because I was really worried about this fucking Elon Musk shit, taking over our Treasury Department, what do you call it, computers. Danny, how do you recommend we fix Democratic Party so we don't go through this again? So Danny, there's a lot that I want to say about that, Danny, so please stick with me. First of all, the way that you fix the Democratic Party is the same way that you fix the government, and it's by voting. Voting and political pressure. Like, I find it so ridiculous the way that people talk about politics as though the DNC and the RNC, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, are the ones who are picking these candidates. But everybody who's in power right now is there because somebody voted for them. So we vote for the politicians that go to the election and then get voted on in the general. And so as much as I am going to stand the Democratic Party in the general, I am digging into these candidates in the primary to see who is the progressive that mirrors my values. And so people need to start voting for the politicians that they like, that they're willing to go to bat for in the general. And then when the general comes around, people have to recognize that better is better and worse is worse. I don't fucking truck with this bullshit argument of, well, the lesser of two evils is still evil. It's like, yeah, but it's less evil, and we should be voting for better as opposed to worse. If we vote for better enough, we might eventually get to good, and then maybe great one day. So that's how we fix the Democratic Party, is we put political pressure on the people who are already in office, and we vote in the primary for the politicians that we actually care about. And we have to not be butthurt if our candidates don't win the primary and then just not vote because we're fucking children who are like, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I wanted Katie Porter to win the Senate primary. She didn't. She lost to Adam Schiff. All right, cool. Adam Schiff is great also. I just preferred Katie Porter. So now I vote for Adam Schiff. And there are people out there who would be like, yeah, well, he's a centrist shill who's owned by credit card companies, blah, 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 blah. He's better. He's better than the alternative. Better is better and worse is worse. So that's part number one, is how to fix the Democratic Party. Number two is, I think we need to recognize that the reason why we're in the situation we're in right now is not because of fault with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has been being judged by a harsher standard than the Republican Party for decades. And I'm fucking tired of it, man. And so when people talk about like, oh, Kamala said that she wouldn't have done anything different than Biden in that one interview on The View, and that's why she won, that's why she lost the elections. That's why all Democrats lost the elections. I'm like, really? We're judging our Democratic candidates by one thing they said one time? What about fucking the Republican candidates who say a million fucking batshit things all the fucking time? I could pick you 1,000 things that Trump said that were worse than Kamala saying that she couldn't think of how she would do the Biden administration different had she been in charge instead. So why are we judging the Democratic Party like this? It's because of media narratives. It's because of cultural narratives that were perpetuated by people with a lot of power and influence. And some of those people are doing it on purpose. Some of those people are being paid to do it. And some of those people are just useful idiots who got tricked and got conned. And they are pushing forward those narratives as well. And you got to look out for it because some of them are real sneaky. Some of them are, people who are obviously right-wing, like ding-dongs like Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro putting their shit out there, and they're being the most popular on Facebook and X because those billionaires are completely in league with, helping the Republicans accumulate more power because it helps them get more money and power. But there's also people that are self-proclaimed leftists who all their videos are about good progressive shit. And then they go on the internet and they tell people not to vote for Democrats because they're accelerationists. Or they're saying like, Kamala hasn't earned my vote yet, so I'm waiting to see. Or, just couching everything that they say is like always focusing on what the Democratic Party is doing wrong as opposed to focusing on the fact that they're better. That they're better than the Republican Party, And this is not to say that they don't make mistakes, but come on, guys. Would you rather have that or this? That's what I would say. I think we need to recognize that the narratives, that media narratives, social media narratives, and mainstream media narratives are designed to hurt left-leaning politicians and get people not to vote and disengage the public and help support right-wing narratives. It's a reason that when Obama was trying to do the Affordable Care Act in 2009, every crazy shit that Republicans said about the Affordable Care Act was like mainstream news. There were these things that the Republicans created. They were like, oh, there's death panels in the Affordable Care Act. There were no death panels in the Affordable Care Act. But everybody in this country thought there were death panels in the Affordable Care Act because people on the mainstream news, even these quote-unquote liberal left-leaning news sources, were out there saying with their whole ass that, well, Republicans are saying that there's death panels in the Affordable Care Act. All right, well, why don't you fucking read the thing and tell the American people if there are or aren't death panels in the Affordable Care Act, Alrighty, let's see here. We got another Twitch comment. Wizard's Bread Book says, low-key, Dangism is accelerationist strongest argument. Not that I think China is really still communist in its goals. They seem pretty liberal to me. I don't know what. That's not really a question, Wizard's Bread Book. It's the Rocketeer. To be frank, very annoyed that Katie Porter decided to not run for her seat. Well, that's her choice. She can decide to run for her seat or not run for her seat. That's her call. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Mactastic, when are Democrats going to stop being weak in their fight against Republicans? I mean, there are already plenty of Democrats who are fighting hard. I mean, I just heard a great interview with Chris Murphy where he's talking about all the things that he's doing to, try to hold the Republican Party to task. But the fact of the matter is that Democrats have almost no power in government right now. And so we cannot expect them to be the ones that save us. They do not have the kind of reach and financial resources that the Republican Party has. And they do not have the levers of government that are currently being controlled by the Republican Party. So again, the DNC is going to do what they can. They're going to try their hardest. But nothing is going to get better unless we do the work. And the work is putting political pressure on Republicans and getting people to vote for Democrats in the midterms. Making sure that people are registered, making sure that they recognize that Democrats are better than Republicans. Lovely Renee, what's going on? Good to see you again. Yacey Colvin says, do you think California would be better off an independent state? I don't know if America would be better off as an independent state, but I do know that Russia has been paying for the California secessionist movement and all those narratives to be out there on social media. So I am against the California secessionist movement because I recognize that I have no idea if it's going to be better or worse for California, but it's what Putin wants, and so that's not going to be good for America. Z says, DNC killed the party. I disagree with that. Mid-card Jabroni says, but you need to strengthen the base. The Democrats are relying on too many people that don't show up to vote. I don't know what you mean by that, mid-card Jabroni, because, depending on who you talk to, strengthening the base means being more centrist or being more left-wing. This is part of what I was talking about when I say that we're judging the Democratic Party too harshly, because there are people on the far left who are going to tell you that the Democratic Party will never be far enough left for them. And so going after those voters is a fool's errand. And there are people who are centrists who, when we try to appeal to them, they look at what the right is saying about AOC and Bernie Sanders, and they think that the left is going to stop them from eating hamburgers. And they say, well, I can't vote for that. The Democratic Party is the party of damned if you do and damned if you don't. They cannot say or do anything without getting excoriated everywhere on the media and everywhere on social media. And so again, the DNC is going to do what the DNC is going to do. What we do is we vote for the politicians that we want. And we put political pressure on the politicians that are currently in power. So I don't truck with this argument at all that if only the DNC would do this or do this, then everything in this country would be better. No, it's up to us. They don't have the ability to save us. They have no political power, and they don't have the resources that the Republican Party has, because the Republican Party is in league with the richest people in the world, including Vladimir Putin. People from adversarial nations are working with the Republican Party right now. And the Democratic Party, for as much infrastructure and small donor donations they have, they do not have the resources to take on Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin at the same time. Alrighty, let's see here. Yasmin says they aren't going to let us vote again, I'm sure. Yasmin, we can't operate under the assumption that they're already going to stop us from voting. We have to demand that they let us vote. That is our constitutional right as citizens. And if they don't let us vote, if they do shady things to try to throw our votes out, then we need to fucking take to the streets. Because giving up is what they want. They want us to be so cynical and defeatist that people just go like, fuck it, whatever, nothing's gonna change, we're fucked, everything's done. Do the work. Do the work with me. I'm doing the work, everybody. Come join me. The water's great. And if you do a little bit of work, then I don't have to fucking do so much work. I selfishly want y'all to help me because I have other things to do. I gotta do laundry. I can't just be the only one telling people that Democrats are better than Republicans and calling my representatives and telling them that I want them to do this and I don't want them to do this. I can't do this all by myself, guys. We all have to do it. Let's see here. Mark Steven, why doesn't Trump understand that tariffs will be paid for by the American public? He knows. He's always known. He's out there on television now telling people to expect to pay more. But, he knew beforehand. He just lied to everybody. And everybody else, people like myself, were like, he's lying. And nobody believed us for some fucking reason. For some fucking reason being propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, being perpetuated on social media, which is being controlled and manipulated by people with a lot of money and power who are in league with the Republican Party. Let's see here. Flower emoji says, is emailing okay, or is it better to call? The thing that makes it more immediate is the thing that will make it better. And so, yes, you can email, but that has limited effectiveness. We learned this in the first Trump turn, which is that showing up in person is the most effective. Faxing and phone calls are the second most effective. Let's see here. Midcard Jabroni says, this sounds like a defeatist attitude. What sounds like a defeatist attitude? Because I'm not being defeatist. I'm telling people, we're doing the work. Let's do the work. I'm doing the work. You want to do the work with me? Here's what the work is. Let's do it. Mindspin, do you think that this second Trump term was an inevitability and that things have to get much worse before they get better? It seems like if Kamala had won, it would have only amplified the MAGA cause. I don't agree with that at all. If Trump had lost a second time, then that would have been the end of MAGA, because the Republican Party would have recognized that, yes, there is this toxic party out there, but they're not winning us elections, and they have a declining, political power in this country. So yeah, I do not think that the second Trump term was an inevitability. I think that if people had just done the work, then we could have convinced more people to get out and vote. I don't know if we had a good handle on how thoroughly the billionaire class in the Republican Party had been manipulating social media to their end. It's the reason why the polls were so fucking close, and everybody was baffled by this, because they were just like, I don't understand how these polls are so fucking close when all these things have happened. Like there was an assassination attempt, there was a new nominee, and it was still just like, it's going to be a coin toss who wins this election. And it was a coin toss. People talk about this landslide victory, but it wasn't. It was a razor thin margin. So yeah. Yeah, I do not think that things have to get much better before they have to get much worse before they get better. I think that we can start making things better right fucking now. Ali Castorina says, do you think USA as we know it will crash? Is it possible we will be blackout? Let's see here. Dan, I see you. Thank you for being here again, man. I will get to your question as well. So here's the thing. America can crash. America can, suffer from rolling blackouts. I don't know if that's what you meant by blackout, Ali. But yeah, we have the potential to not exist as a country anymore, or become more authoritarian like Russia or Nazi Germany or whatever. The thing that is going to stop that from happening is us. And I know I'm a fucking broken record on here talking about how we have to do the work. But yeah, I'm not defeatist. I'm not cynical. We can stop this, but we have to be the ones that do it. Dan says, do you give credit to Trump or Biden for the ceasefire? I don't give anybody credit for the ceasefire, and I'll tell you why. The Biden administration was working their fucking ass off to get a ceasefire the entire time that the war was going on. And Netanyahu was throwing cold water on it at every fucking turn because he wanted that war to keep going. And we can't force Netanyahu to not want to be at war with Hamas, the same way that we couldn't force Hamas not to want to be at war with Israel. And so both Hamas and Israel did not want there to be a ceasefire. Netanyahu specifically wanted there to not be a ceasefire so that, number one, he would lose political power and potentially go to jail because he is guilty of massive, widespread corruption. We know that to be the case. That is not conjecture or hyperbole. It was keeping him out of jail the same way that Trump winning the presidency a second time kept him out of jail. And he wanted to help Trump's chances of getting elected. And he thought that if that war kept on going and people kept on seeing all the terrible images of the people that were killed by, American weapons shot by Israel, then that would hurt Biden's chances of getting reelected, or Democrats' chances of getting elected at all. So yeah, Biden administration was working their ass off trying to get a ceasefire deal, and Netanyahu was never going to let one happen until Trump came back to office, so that he could show everybody, look at what a great job Trump did, everybody. And there is some reporting to suggest that, I forget who it was in the State Department that went and sort of putting pressure on Netanyahu to agree to the ceasefire. And suddenly Netanyahu's like, oh yeah, okay, you got me, everybody. I'll sign the ceasefire deal. It's like, it's a lie. It's fucking bullshit, man. This was always going to happen. And if Kamala had won, then Netanyahu would still not be coming to the table for a ceasefire deal because he wants to hurt the Democratic Party. Alrighty, let's see here. Dan, that's a really good answer, not gonna lie. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you being here. 555-95472 says, we need to get out to our local Democratic Party offices, attending meetings. Yeah, attending meetings is part of it, but, you know, there's a lot of other work that needs to be done as well. Talking to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors about the importance of voting, about the importance of political pressure. If you live in a red district or state, putting political pressure on your representatives, getting a whole bunch of friends who feel similarly to you and camping out outside of their fucking offices and letting them know, like, this is important and you're not going to fucking stand for it. Like, that is all part of the work. Blackheart says, how do you feel about the tariffs? They're dumb. Trump's dumb. They're going to hurt everybody. Ridin Boward says, tariffs, yes or no? Ontario just canceled Elon's Starlink deal. Yeah, tariffs are dumb. Tariffs are bad. Nicole says, I hate talking to people. I always get angry at their stupidity. I'm with you, Nicole. There's a reason why I prefer doing these live streams where I'm the only one that gets to talk as opposed to, you know, whenever I'm canvassing and I have to actually talk to voters. It's hard. It is hard work. And I don't want to be doing it, but I'm doing it because I worry. I'm worried about the people that I love and care about getting hurt by this Trump administration, by Republicans in general. You know, I'm worried about people I've never met, and I'm worried about my friends and family. Let's see here. Indiegogo says, lefties lie and cheat. That is an example of the kind of comment that will get you blocked. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but, you know, be part of the conversation, add to the discourse. Don't just come on here and call me a lying cuck. Let's see here. Mindspin, any idea who might be the next legitimate Democratic presidential candidates? That's not really a narrative that I'm concerned about. Mindspin, you know, people are going to vote for whoever they want to in the primary. I hope that the DNC will do something to make it so that we don't have 50 candidates running again like we did in 2020. It'll be a little bit easier to parse through who the contenders are, top contenders are, and we can have a good primary based on that. But yeah, I'm not going to start wish casting for, you know, a presidential candidates in 2028 when I'm worried about getting people to vote in 2026. You know, get them out there. You know, let's see here. Zach Usera says, do you think Trump will leave in 4 years? He will not leave in 4 years unless he is forced to leave. It is his plan to die in office. And so whether that means him lobbying the Supreme Court and the Republican-led Congress to change the rules so that he can run again, whether that means him establishing a dictatorship and canceling elections, it is anybody's guess what the mechanism will be. But that is his express wish is to never leave office, is to die in office. Let's see here. Felicia Treasures, right, 2026, we must vote en masse. Completely agree with that. Blackheart says, especially the young people who could vote this last election. What was that about, Blackheart? Didn't you just say something about that? Yeah. Volsi Destine says, how do you feel about Tulsi Gabbard? She's a national security nightmare. She seems to love authoritarians and despots. I don't fucking trust her as far as I can throw them. People need to vote. Yes, completely agree with that. Renee, thoughts on Trump's 2025 agenda? It's a fucking nightmare. I was out here yelling and screaming about it, and people were telling me, oh, but that's not really what his policy is going to be. He doesn't know anything about it. He's not even one of the people that wrote it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And now all these Republicans are admitting that that was the plan all along, you know. It's, you know, I did my best. I did my best to warn everybody. Jacob Brown, there's a huge jump between a third term and a dictatorship. Yeah, Jacob, but they're already doing the dictatorship stuff now. They're already doing it, Jacob. They are purging government officials. They are purging the FBI. Pete Hegseth is a Trump loyalist who is now in charge of the Department of Defense. And so we're going to potentially see the military deployed against peaceful protesters. Trump was saying that he wanted the military to shoot protesters in the leg. And before, we had General Mark Milley, who would tell Trump, like, that's illegal and I'm not doing that. And now we have Pete Hegseth, who's going to say, okay, Daddy, how many bullets would you like me to put in these leftist legs for you? The people who are saying, like, don't worry, there's still a lot of work to do before this becomes a fascist dictatorship, you can fucking miss me with that shit, because there's shit happening now that is jaw-droppingly bad that we need to stop, that we need to be out in the streets, that we need to be on our fucking phones and talking to our neighbors about right fucking now. Yesterday, we needed to get started. Jeff says, then move. No, you move. Ali Castorena says, February 3rd, day without immigration. Do you think that helps? Not shopping, no school. Thank you. Yeah, everything helps. We just got to get more people to do it. You know, it doesn't help if it's a small group of people, because then there are arguments and discussions about whether or not protesting does anything. But yeah, it all helps. You know, we have to do it all. We have to do all the work. We have to do boycotts, and we have to do protests, and we have to do marches, and we have to knock on doors, and we have to call our leaders, and we have to talk to our friends and families and neighbors, etc., etc. Let's see here. Mindspin, thoughts on Kash Patel if he's confirmed? He's another fucking Trump loyalist. He literally wrote in his book his enemies list that he's going to be going after if he becomes the FBI director. That's not what the FBI director is supposed to do. The FBI director is supposed to follow the clues, follow the evidence, and go after the people who are, fucking doing crimes. Don't start with somebody that you want to take down and then look for the crimes that they did. And that's what he's going to do. I don't know if people are worried enough about this, because it's like, you know, there is nothing stopping them from throwing people in jail just because they don't like them. There is, you know, ICE is already a rogue agency, and the fact that we know about ICE rounding up a veteran and a bunch of citizens and a bunch of Native Americans is evidence that there are still little windows of accountability and power in people doing the right thing. But those windows are getting smaller every single fucking day. And so we need to do stuff now. We need to act now. The Void, yes, my face when the fascists do that thing the fascists said they were going to do. Yeah, exactly, man. I have like a little thread on my Instagram right now of, this is part of my 1,000,000-part series, things that I told you were going to happen, you complete fucking morons, you know? So yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Mindspin says, I think Patel is terrifying. You're correct. You are absolutely correct, Mindspin. Kash Patel is terrifying. Freestyle Gaming says, are you a communist? No, but I do believe in communist principles like employee-owned companies. I support employee-owned companies. I think America should do more to incentivize companies from being employee-owned. And I think that is one of the ways that we deal with massive income inequality, billionaires having way too much money and power and influence, and overall having a just and fair society. Let's see here. Ella's dad, do you think RFK will get confirmed? I have no idea. It just depends on if people will put political pressure on their Republican senators to not vote for RFK Jr. I don't do predictions. I say, here's the thing. Here's what I don't do predictions. I say do the work. Don't do predictions. Do the work. There's another sentences that I will say on every one of my lives from now on. Darian, yes, your thoughts on RFK? He's a liar. He's a fraud. He's a hack. He's dangerous. He's completely full of shit. He's an opportunist. I can't say enough negative things about him. Blackheart says, can he do everything he's saying, or does he bluff at least a little bit? Do you mean Donald Trump? Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter if he can or can't do everything that he says he's going to do. If he wants to do it, and he says that he wants to do it, that should be enough to worry us and to vote against that. You know, I've definitely had this argument with people in the past where they're like, I'm talking about, fucking... What's her name? Former press secretary who is now like the governor of Arkansas or some shit. I forget what her name is. But yeah, she's talking about bringing back child labor, ending child labor laws. And the people I was arguing with were like, it's going to be really hard for them to do that. I'm like, well, they want to do that. Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough that they want to do that and they're saying they're going to do that? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, thank you very much. Dan, do you think there will be no tax on tips? I wouldn't hold my breath. But here's what I will say is that there is language in that legislation that would make it so that the billion-dollar, bonuses that hedge funds, operators get at the end of the year will then count as tips, and they won't have to pay taxes on that. And I was telling people about that, but nobody fucking listens to me, Aiden, who would I vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Aaron, glad Trump is getting rid of tax on tips and overtime. He hasn't done that yet, Aaron, so I wouldn't hold my breath. And by the way, and just remember this, everybody, that whatever legislation you think Trump is going to do that is going to be good for you, it is going to be 1,000 times better for rich people. And I hope that pisses you off. I hope it pisses you off that, you saved $80 a month because you didn't have to pay taxes on tips. Well, the richest people in the world just got $1 billion tax write-off. Congratulations. Zach, what do you think about MAGA taking the moral high road on exploiting migrants? I mean, I have no idea what their argument would even be because it is completely full of shit. You know, the party that stole children from their parents, deported the parents, and then lost them. So now we had 1,000+ orphans in this country with PTSD. Is talking about the left taking advantage of migrants? Like, what is the argument even? You know, that is a real stretch. I agree with you, lovely Renee. Let's see here. The Void, yes, says the ever more ineffective political left getting hammered by the capitalist mediums of disinformation on the freest country in the world, the freest country to open to oppress people that don't have money. That is. The Void, yes, so I agree with you, but here's the thing. Like, I don't believe that the Democratic Party needs to get criticized more. Because I've talked about this at length on this live already, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I have watched the Democratic Party get judged by a much harsher standard than the Republican Party has been getting judged for decades. And I believe that is part of the reason why the world has such a negative opinion of the Democratic Party, both their policies and their ability to govern, because it doesn't match with when I actually watch Democratic politicians do things. It doesn't match the way that people feel about them. You know, I think it was like a year and a half into the Biden administration, I was already listening to people talk about how shitty of a job he was doing. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like the Inflation Reduction Act, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the first bipartisan infrastructure bill in over a decade. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? The criticisms of the Democratic Party is a fully renewable resource that we can go in there as soon as whenever we need to, we can get there. But I am not going to blame the fact that Republicans have all the money and power and have been manipulating the media narratives for decades, including on social media, where they have this direct ability to change narratives to hurt the Democratic Party. I'm not blaming that on the Democratic Party. You know, like they have it hard enough. They get criticized no matter what they do. They're too far to the left, they're too far to the right, they never get anything done, but also they're fucking dictator fascists who do whatever the fuck they want, you know? About why the Republican Party is worse than the Democratic Party, even in its current state. You know, we all hate how ineffective the Democratic Party is, sure, okay, but the Republican Party is worse. A lot worse. Worse by a lot. So yeah. The Void, yes, I just like them because they don't do the work to fight the fascists. They do the work to fight the fascists. They just don't have any power right now to do anything. They impeached Donald Trump twice. You know, we can bitch and moan about Merrick Garland dragging his feet on the Trump indictments, but the fact of the matter is, he appointed Jack Smith, who brought several extremely successful cases against Donald Trump in the past 4 years. I'm having some real connection issues here, everybody. I apologize. I apologize for the connection issues on TikTok. I apologize. I apologize for the connection issues here on TikTok. I see it happening, everybody. I'm going to see what I can do to fix it. But yeah, the Void, yes. I think the fight is there. I think that we're just being tricked into not seeing it. Let's see here. Mindspin says that double standard is so real. It's hilarious, and people say the media is liberal biased. Completely agree with that as well. Alrighty. Yeah, I apologize for the glitching, everybody. Let's see if I can find a good question to get back into things. DGeb4, do you have a possible script of what we should be saying to our representatives when we call? Absolutely. And it depends on, if you have Republican, representatives or Democratic representatives, but, just talk about the things that you care about. Tell them the things that you're worried about. There's nothing that you have to say or do. They're going to ask you what your name is. They're going to ask you what your zip code is so that they know, and they're going to ask if they can contact you about this stuff in the future. So they might ask you for your email address or for your phone number. You can or cannot give them any of that stuff. The thing that you have to give them, though, is your name and zip code, because then they have to make sure that you are one of the voters that they should be giving a shit about, because I could call fucking Ted Cruz's office in Texas, but I have no power to elect him or not elect him. So they're not going to really give a shit about the things that I say. So yeah, you tell them what your name is, you tell them what your zip code is, and then just tell them what you're worried about, what you want them to be doing, what you want them to not be doing, etc. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, perfectly worded. It could even be just, like stream of conscious. It is their job to listen to you and to do what you say. They have a lot of bosses in the voters. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay. All right, so we're at about an hour. I'm going to start wrapping things up because, again, we are having connection issues as well. Let's see here. Lovely Renee says, the right is trying to say Claudia caved when she sent the same amount of troops as Biden. I don't know what that is in reference to, Lovely Renee. Can you give a little moss information? All right, I'm gonna do my outro and then I'll do some final questions. I always do final questions after the outro, so stick around. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for all the comments, for all the gifts, for all the follows and likes and everything like that. I appreciate any support that you guys can give me to continue doing these live streams, whether it is the free kind, like liking and sharing and... fuck me. Still glitching. Sorry about that. I appreciate any support you can give me, whether it's the free kind, like likes and shares and telling everybody how great my live streams are. If you can afford to do the financial kind of support, I have a Patreon, I have a store on my website, jaredberenstein.com, and you can send gifts on Twitch and on TikTok as well. So yeah, but you don't have to. I know that, we're living through a cost of living crisis, so I'm not going to tell everybody has to send me money for doing these live streams. Let's see here. My normal schedule is Tuesday through Friday on Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, and I usually start around 11:30 Pacific Standard Time, but I often start earlier than that because I really like doing these. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to because I was glitching or because the comments are coming in too fast and furious, my DMs are open, and also you can email me through my website, jaredberenstein.com. Let's see here. Yeah, and just my heartfelt plea for us all to do the work. Let's all do the work so that we can stop this fucking madness from happening and live in a better country. Alrighty, let's get into some more of these final comments. Adam L29K says Mexican president is sending National Guard to Mexico to stop fentanyl and agreed to pause tariffs. I have not seen that. That seems up-to-the-minute news that I have not been able to check it out. The Void Yes says, thing is you don't let them gain power. You put legislation in place to block money equaling power. Yes, the Void Yes, but Democrats had legislation to do that, but we didn't elect enough Democrats to actually get that done. We still had Sinema and Manchin who were fucking up all of our legislation. So yeah, the Democrats do have that legislation available, but just not enough people voted for Democratic politicians. That's the fact of the matter. That song that was going around? I don't know if anybody not on TikTok knows this song, but it was this song about making fun of the government for doing the TikTok ban when there are other problems like global warming and mass shootings. But I found it, illustrative. Illustrative? I found it interesting. I found it full of meaning. Illustrative. Yeah, I think I'm saying that word right. I found it illustrative that all the things that were mentioned in that song are Democratic policy, proposals and, what do you call it? They're all things that are part of the Democratic platform that would get solved if there were only Democrats in government, but are not getting solved because Democrats have to share power with Republicans, and sometimes Republicans take over the entire fucking country. So yeah, the lyrics of the song talk about global warming, access to healthcare, welfare, corruption at the top, citizens getting shot. All of those are Democratic policy agendas. All of that is, I can point to legislation for almost all of those things that Democrats have taken action on or have tried to take action on and have been stopped by Republicans from doing those things. So yeah, we can argue all day about, the flaws of the Democratic Party, but at the end of the day, it's not productive. Because people need to recognize how much worse the Republicans are. And the fact is that the Republican politicians who have stopped Democrats from solving problems is the reason why sometimes Democrats are, quote-unquote, ineffectual. Let's see here. JC0608 says, you before the Sith or the Jedi? The Jedi. It's the Rocketeer. To the guy saying Mexico is sending troops because of the tariffs, that is confirmed happening right now, but Biden did it in 2021 too and didn't have to tank the economy to get them there. Interesting. I need to look up both of those things because I did not know about them. Let's see here. Oliver says Democrats are ineffectual in general. That is the narrative around Democrats, Oliver, but I do not believe that it is accurate because Democrats passed the first bipartisan infrastructure bill in over a decade, the first bipartisan gun control legislation in over 2 decades, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history. The Biden administration got sick days for the rail workers union. That is what they were threatening to strike for. Biden just got it for them through negotiating. I will take the accomplishments of the Biden administration to bat any fucking day of the week, especially over Republican politicians, saying, oh, look at all the shit that they got done. Really? All the shit the Republicans got done? A fucking billion-dollar tax cut for the richest 1% in this fucking country? Yeah, the Democrats are not ineffectual. They're just the victim of a, unbalanced criticism. They get all the blame and zero of the credit, and Republicans get zero blame and all of the credit. Mindspin, Democrats aren't ineffective. They just don't have the messaging that Republicans have. The messaging is weak and ineffectual. And again, I don't even think that that's their fault. I think it's the fault of the media narrative and the fact that the billionaires want to be pushing these narratives that hurt the Democratic Party. It is also a lot harder to have a unified messaging campaign when you are the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is made up of a bunch of little parties. It is the LGBTQ alliance and people of color and Hispanic Americans and, white liberals and Jewish people and Christians and Catholics and everybody. Whereas the Republican Party is much more of a monolith. And so it is much easier for them to just get in line and do what they're fucking told. Ashton T. Harvey, do you think we will be able to get term limits on Congress? Yes, Ashton, if we vote for politicians who will do that. That is the whole fucking point of this country. People will talk about, will we ever get universal health care? Yeah, if we vote for politicians who know that we want that, and we know that they want them to do that, and we tell them to do that. Let's see here. JC0608 says, but the Sith lightsabers are cooler. Surely that has to be considered. I would refer you to Mace Windu, who had a purple lightsaber. I thought that was dope as hell. Alrighty. Mindspin, thanks for answering my questions. Even if we don't agree on some things, I'm with you, sir. Thank you, Mindspin. I appreciate you being here. Alright. Michael Anthony, that's fair, but Dems don't do themselves any favor by going with the status quo. Listen, I have plenty of criticisms for the Democratic Party. They are, too centrist for my taste. I'm a progressive. I'm an aggressive progressive. But the fact of the matter is that not everybody votes the way that I vote. And there are some people on the left who think that people like AOC and Sanders go too far. And there are people on the left who think that AOC and Bernie Sanders don't go far enough. There are people on the left who think that AOC and Bernie Sanders are fascists. That is an example of these media narratives being unfair to the Democratic Party. There's nothing that the Democratic Party can't do that we will not amplify a faction of the left and the right that is tearing down the Democratic Party for doing it. And so I am done with that. I am done with the easy target of the Democratic Party. And instead, I am talking about all the great things the Democratic Party has done and how much better they are than the Republican Party. Because again, Democrats never get any credit and Republicans never get any blame, and I'm fucking tired of it. That's the reason why we're where we are right now, is because Democrats never get any credit and Republicans never get any blame. I've said this before, but I think it is illuminating, that the Republican Party has this image of being the national security party, but they were in charge when 9/11 happened. The largest national security failure in our nation's history happened under full Republican control of the government. If that happened when Democrats were in control, we would never fucking hear the end of that being such a national security failure that the Democrats let happen. But Republicans literally let 9/11 happen, and the world was like, well, I guess they tried their best. Democrats never get any credit, Republicans never get any blame. All right, everybody. It looks like things are slowing down comment-wise, so I am going to head out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have an excellent week, everybody. Let's all go out there and do the work. If everybody does a little bit of work, then nobody has to do all the work, and we got to take care of each other. That's how we survive the next 4 years. We all got to be there for each other. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Bye! Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.